There are so many interesting, horrifying, or downright weird things in this big world of ours.
Each week, we'll bring you a new true crime story that has little to no coverage in English.
Let us do the translations so you don't have to.
I am Petra.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Laura, and this is the podcast Translation Murder. And yeah, so this is my week once again, and we're remaining in Finland. So as I hinted, it involves a oven as well. So I guess that's my, I don't know,
Your
my
favorite topic.
forte is fire. Though this doesn't necessarily involve fire per se. So just a fireplace. And I'm sure Petra might know this one because this is quite a famous murder in Finland, at least. I think like the second most famous. Okay. So I guess it would probably be like Boromjärvi murder
Yeah.
is
that's
probably
the
the first
first.
one.
Huh.
And then there's this other one. Oh, damn it. I wrote it down. Anyway, then there's like this other famous case. And then there's probably this one is maybe the third most famous, I would say.
So do I know it?
And yeah, I don't know. It depends on,
Well, let's
I
see.
guess, how used to Finnish crime you are. But if anybody wants like a quick synopsis, kind of like a quicker version of this episode or something, or maybe a bit more soothing voice to listen to this topic, I would maybe recommend the True Crime Finland podcast, and it was, I believe, episode 70. They did this topic as well and you can find that on Spotify. At least that's how I listen to it. So, yeah.
Question.
And
Sorry. Is that podcast in
yeah.
Finnish or in English?
It's in English, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it was the first episode I actually listened to of that podcast, and it was quite good. So, yeah. It was like this just one person telling the story. So, just one voice. She had a good, calm, soft voice with a nice Finnish accent. So,
Perfect.
yeah. So, yeah. So, more specifically, we're going to be going to Satakunta and to a place called Kokemäki in a village of Krootila. So, this is kind of near the like the western side, of Finland. Satakunta is like Turku, Pori kind of area. And we'll start this tale about 2 days before Christmas Eve on December 22nd. It was on a Thursday of 1960.
So pretty old one.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, do you know the case of the Uunisurma, Petra? Is that ring any bells?
No.
Okay, right. Yeah, so that's
Me
what it's
neither.
usually known as, the Uunisurma. So oven, like, yeah. I'm trying to have, what is like the translation of surma? I'm having a blank, like, yeah, the kind of,
I guess
oh,
like
come on.
death, but is there some
Yeah,
because surma
yeah,
is not always
yeah,
murder. It can also be an
yeah,
accident.
exactly. Yeah,
Or,
yeah,
but it's
yeah.
definitely something that doesn't happen from illness. It's always in
Yeah,
a way
yeah. It's like a
violent. Like
yeah. I'm just trying to think of the English word and I'm just blanking on the English word for some reason. But anyway, okay. Moving on. I'll probably cut that out because I'm just having a brain fart right now. But yeah, so on this Thursday evening, it looked like it would be a white Christmas, perfect for the mood of this festive season, just it's getting Christmassy in this place. So things were looking good, but things would quickly turn sour. So, according to the police, just an FYI, this case is unsolved. So, get ready for some disappointment. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. So, according to an Ilta-Sanomat article, at around 1600 or 4 p.m., a man by the name of Pentti Saarinen, aged 40, was headed towards home after spending his day working as a mason. Or a masoner is a person who does like brickwork, tile work, that type of stuff. So, if people aren't familiar with the English phrase of mason, it would be like a bricklayer or somebody. And to his surprise, upon arriving home, his wife Hilkka Saarinen was not already at home. Like, he was expecting her to be there, preparing all the Christmas dishes this close to Christmas Eve. And the preparation should have been well underway by now, but that she wasn't at home was pretty odd, you know? So that's kind of like laying the groundwork for the beginning of this story, though it kind of starts even way before that. So we're gonna step back just a wee bit and we're gonna like take a look at the couple that is involved in this story, and we're gonna see what kind of people Pentti and Hilkka were. So Hilkka Hilevi Saarinen was born on the 1st of November 1927. And the house that she and Pentti lived in was her childhood home. She inherited it from her grandparents, and then her and Pentti, apparently to some sources, got a bank loan to buy out the rest of the inheritors. So, you know, this is the house they lived in together since they were married. And the house looked pretty like typical for a Finnish farmhouse. And Pentti Frans Olavi Saarinen and Hilkka were married in 1947 when Hilkka was 20 years old. So this is kind of like, you know, just generally pretty typical for the 1960s, you know, country living, etc. If you want to like already pull up the house floor plan, I put it in our drive so you can kind of like look at that. Just, you know, looks like a pretty typical farmhouse. And yeah, so in this house, the couple would proceed to have 5 children, and apparently home life was pretty normal in the beginning. So, you know, I don't know how like loving it is because I mean it's still Finland. I don't know how like romantic it was. Maybe I'm just being stereotypical, but you know, it's cold, it's north, it's
Well,
Finland.
the question is romance required in love? But let's not go
True.
deeper into that.
Okay. Yes, good point. Yeah. But at some point, Pentti started drinking, and he wasn't a nice drunk. He would take his anger out especially on Hilkka, and multiple reports from neighbors said that Hilkka was often seen covered with bruises. And even when these neighbors tried to help, they were told to mind their own business. And I mean, this is probably most likely from Pentti that they were like, yeah, mind your own business. But I mean, I don't think Hilkka was saying that. Yeah, by her actions later on. He also apparently chased her around the house with an axe on one occasion, and even like took a chunk of wood out of the kitchen table with this axe. Pentti also forced Hilkka to swallow a teaspoon of salt and beat her with a beer bottle to punish her for some minor mistake. And another time, when she bought new clothes for her and the children, he dragged her by the hair and dunked her head into a bucket filled with excrement. So, like an excrement bucket.
What a nice guy. Wow.
Yeah.
Can I
And
guess? He was in war, right?
uh,
I
that's a
mean,
very good point. I
if
mean,
it is
19. So,
six, like how old was he? Did he? What was the year he was born?
so that's a good question. So he doesn't say when he was born. I could figure it out because I know when he
Wait,
died and like probably,
didn't
yeah.
you say that they got married in 1947?
When Hilkka
When
was
he
20
when
was
Hilkka was
20.
20. Okay.
Yeah, so that was 1927, and then if he is a few years older than her, so in
Probably like
1960
25.
he was, yeah, so yeah, in 1960 he was 40, so he was born in 1920. Yeah.
So most likely,
Okay.
because I mean the war was in the 40, like
Mm,
from 39 to 44.
yeah.
So he was in the very war-going age.
Yeah, and
Probably, yeah.
1947, at the beginning of their marriage, it was still okay. So I don't know. Yeah, maybe he could have some residual trauma from war, sure, but still no
Yeah.
excuse. Yeah.
No, yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I
yeah,
mean, just as
just
a
some context.
phenomena, like there was
Mm.
lots of these alcoholic, aggressive guys after the war.
Yeah, and actually there was like
That's
a statistic that I was reading up on. I didn't cite the article because I didn't end up using the research in this, just I'll kind of mention it. But there were some like pre-war divorce rates and stuff were quite low. And then after the war, they went up, and then they kind of went down a little bit after war, but they never went to pre-war rates of divorce. So yeah, it was quite substantial. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, definitely due to war, psychosis, and that type of stuff afterwards. So yeah. So not only was his abuse physical, it was also mental. And on more than one occasion, he said he would and could kill her in such a way that she would never be found and that the murder would not be traced back to him. Or that she would end up like Hilkka Saarinen, and that was the other name that I was trying to remember, which is another
yeah.
unsolved murder, basically.
And
Famous
very
murder that I
famous,
will.
very famous. That one
Yeah.
I know.
That's the most maybe within Finland famous one, and then Boromjärvi is probably the most infamous throughout the world, I would say. And then this is maybe the second most famous within Finland. So yeah. But I don't know if I should cover the Hilkka Saarinen one or
I don't know
not.
that one. I don't think I know
Okay.
it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay.
I would
Well,
say yes.
yeah. If Petra doesn't want to cover it first. Yeah.
Oh,
But
yeah.
no, I don't
Like
remember the details.
Yeah. Yeah.
you could cover it together and just tell me about
Oh,
it.
that would be good. Yeah. Yeah. So, with all the turmoil at home, the children were luckily taken away by Child Protective Services in the year 1958, so they were placed in foster care. But unfortunately, this left Hilkka alone with her abuser. And sometimes she would flee to the neighbors, and this is kind of a lot where these, first person accounts of the neighbors saying that she, got her injuries or whatever, or she'd relay, the some incidences to the neighbors immediately, like she would sneak away or run away or something from Pentti when he was in his rages and stuff, and she would, tell the neighbors like this is what's happening. She'd kind of get away for a little bit for a few days for him to cool off. So yeah. So that's kind of where the neighbor accounts mostly come in. Now, and I just wanted to also kind of throw this in here too, like, because I know that there's a lot of people who are maybe thinking that, okay, she could have gotten out, the kids weren't at home anymore, she could have gotten a divorce, etc. But I don't know. I think a lot of people think it's easier to leave than it actually is.
Yeah, of
And
course.
there are
I
many,
think only
and
like
there,
victim blamers think this that oh why didn't
yeah,
you leave? It's so easy.
yeah, exactly. And especially back in the 1960s, I was trying to do some
Yeah.
research to find like, okay, that's why I was also looking up the rate of divorce and that type of stuff. But I mean, there's just a few reasons why people stay, like isolation, because usually abusers isolate their victims so they don't have anybody to rely upon. Of course, in Pentti's case, he was very, he caused a lot of fear and physical harm and he threatened her. And of course, economic necessity is another one why people don't leave because, I mean, she was a house. I think from what I understood, she might have worked a little bit, but mostly was at home, I think. And of course, then, being homeless or whatever, or then shame could be another one too,
Yeah.
like society's norms and all the reasons go on and on. So I just wanted to point that out that, you know,
And it's her
it's
house
not so
too.
easy.
So I
Yeah,
don't
it's her
think
house.
Andy would have moved out. And then
No,
where does
and
she go? So
yeah, it's a bit questionable too, because I mean, she and him had the house loan, I think, together to buy out
yeah.
so maybe it was a 50-50 split. And I don't know whether she would have the rights or he would have the rights. But I mean, on more than one occasion, I'm just like, why didn't the cops do something? They took the kids away. Why didn't they help her out? That's the
Yeah.
part that I'm also questioning throughout this whole story, where I'm a bit pissed
I mean,
with the
in
authorities.
1960, I'm a little bit surprised that even the kids were taken away.
Yeah,
Mm,
me too.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
such a different society back then.
yeah, yeah. So, moving on. Um, Hilkka was last seen 2 years later, after the kids were taken away, in 1960 on December 23rd. So maybe notice the discrepancy I said earlier if you're taking notes, because I said December 22nd, and now I'm saying December 23rd, but we'll get into that a little bit
Mhm.
later. Different accounts and different stories and different whatever. So a neighbor had stopped and talked to Hilkka. So one account was that Hilkka went to the neighbors to ask for, like some recipes for Christmas dinner. And there's like, a bunch of traditional dishes in Finnish cuisine that you always do during Christmas time. So that's, totally plausible that she stopped and talked to the neighbor to ask, like, hey, how do you make lantulaatikko or something, or perunalaatikko or whatever, right? Rutabaga casserole or potato casserole is the translations for those. And she had also gone to cut a Christmas tree in the woods, so a neighbor saw her, going into the woods to cut a Christmas tree. And also during this time, Hilkka said that she sent a letter to her eldest son, Seppo, who is 13 years old, and had invited him to spend Christmas time with her and Pentti on the 26th. So they're expecting their eldest son on the 26th of December, and he would stay, through Christmas time during the Christmas break. He was, coming back from school.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, like, okay, sounds really sad Christmas. You're doing the preparation only for your aggressive husband, but now I understand if also the kid was coming to
Yeah.
visit. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and both parents were, aware that, Seppo was coming back. So on the 25th of December, though, Seppo arrived early at his parents' place because, they were expecting him on the 26th. He came on the 25th. And he also had his schoolmate in tow. So he, invited his schoolmate along home, which, I don't know, I'm just thinking maybe that was like a defense mechanism, knowing that his father is volatile or something, but who knows?
Yeah, or maybe the schoolmate had even worse family situation. I don't know if they
True,
were in this
yeah.
kind of school that's by the foster home, or I don't know.
Yeah, that could be true too.
Mm.
So when they arrived at his parents' place, the front door was unlocked, and so they entered through the ulko-eteinen, and into the sisä-eteinen. So in Finland, just to make sure that everybody kind of understands the structure, and of course you and Petra, Victoria and Petra, you can look at the floor plans, you kind of know what's going on.
And this will be
But
eventually posted on Instagram as well.
yes, so you can kind of follow along to the story and look at the picture on our Instagram. But so the purpose of the ethane is just to kind of maintain, the heat in the winter time if you have like more than one door, so the cold air doesn't go directly into the house, and then also to keep the shoes and stuff like that and the coats and the wetness kind of in that area. So so ulko eteen, and it would be outer entryway or outer foyer, I guess, and then the sisä eteen is like the inner entryway or inner foyer. So in one source, it said that Seppo arrived and his father was cleaning frantically. And then another source said that when the boys arrived, um, Pentti arrives or emerges from the big kitchen, so to like the right of it, and then the right side of the house, and blocks the boys' entryway and locks the door behind him. And later that night, Seppo asks why the kitchen was so dark. So there's two kitchens. There's like the small kitchen that's directly forward when you go through the sisäeteinen, and then there's like a door there, and then there's another door to the right, and then that's the door leading into like the bigger kind of common area, and that's where you have the leivin uuni, or the cooking oven, and then you can kind of shut that off, so it's all for like heat, maintenance and stuff in the winter time. So it makes sense in Finland to have these, older style houses with many doors so you can shut them and maintain heat and stuff in the winter. So anyway, Seppo, the son, asks, "Hey, why is the kitchen so dark? And why is his father cleaning in the dark while there was a light, that could be on in the bedroom, one room over, right? Because there's like these two bedrooms on the other side of the house that are like connected that open up into that bigger kitchen area." And he says his father says the light is broken in the kitchen. So, which is, weird. Like, just wait until the light of day, to clean up. Why do you need to clean up like right now, especially in the dark? And then another thing Seppo notices is that the junk that's usually kind of like piled up on the leivin uuni, or the baking oven, is scattered on the floor. And his father happens to have like scraped knuckles or like bloody knuckles from doing something, right?
I'm sorry,
So
how is this unsolved?
yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Yeah. Yeah. So during the boys' stay, and they continued to like act suspicious and paranoid, and the three of them just spent the kitchen, or like the Christmas time, in this small kitchen, I assume, because like it was quite difficult to read some of the articles, because they didn't mention like sisa eteinen, they didn't mention like the small kitchen to the big kitchen to the different rooms, so I kind of had to like piece it together. And so what I gathered, that they spent their time in the small kitchen because there was like a bed there and a small oven, etc. And yeah, and then all the doors were locked otherwise, besides the small kitchen. And Pentti explained this away.
Mother is nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get to that too. We'll get to
Yeah.
that too. And Pentti explained this away so that he could only afford to keep the small kitchen heated. So during the winter time, he could only keep it heated. And all this suspicious behavior caused the schoolmate to dip out earlier than expected. So
I would have done it too.
which I
Like,
was
okay,
thinking-
I'm out of here. Why do you
Yeah.
need to lock the doors to keep the heat?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Also,
and like
yeah. Oh my god.
yeah, like even when they were like outside in the courtyard and stuff, walking around, him and the schoolmates, like the dad be watching them from the window and just being all paranoid and shit, just to be sure that they're not like, I don't know, doing stuff outside or investigating.
Finding
I'm sure.
out something.
Yeah, exactly. So during Seppo's subsequent stay, there was still no trace of Hilkka. And Seppo ended up leaving on January 1st. So, I mean, of course, he was curious about where his mother was. Like, he asked, and, his dad just, she disappeared, etc., etc. And we'll also get into that a bit later, too. But there's that Pentti did something to Hilkka, circulated the community, of course, because after all, he was an abusive alcoholic and everyone knew it, especially the neighbors, because, Hilkka came over and showed the battle wounds, basically, from Pentti's abuse. And also Pentti was completely unfazed by her disappearance, and he didn't even report her missing. So this is all very telling. Like, yeah, this is all very telling. Like, why would you not report your wife missing, especially around Christmas time? Wouldn't you be concerned, etc.? So about a week later, after this, the neighbors themselves reported Hilkka missing, and the police searched the premises, which yielded no evidence, and Pentti was, questioned multiple times over the next 5 years, and other searches were carried out, like on the grounds, in the house, everything. Like, there's just nothing. There's no trace of Hilkka anywhere. Yeah. So, as I said, years passed. There were still no signs of Hilkka, but luckily, her devoted son, Seppo, decided to take matters into his own hands. So during the following years, Seppo would try to do his own investigation when he was left alone, which I'm guessing probably wasn't that often because the father was probably still pretty paranoid, or I don't know. He searched floorboards, he searched ceilings, the grounds outside, but nothing looked suspicious until he searched the big fireplace room with the baking oven.
Uh-huh.
And the bricks near the top of the wall had been replaced and the oven hatches had been bricked up. And he ended up writing a letter to the Keskusrikospoliisi, or the Central Criminal Police, 6 years later in November 1966, that he suspected his father knowing more about his mother's disappearance than Pentti would let on. And Seppo wrote, and I'll just kind of translate the Finnish online. He basically says that the basically the baking oven has been opened and bricked up, and it hasn't been in use for the past like 7 or 8 years. And his dad had cleaned in the dark, even though in the other room there was a light, when my friend and I came to stay. I thought that the oven should be investigated and dismantled, and my dad is basically capable of anything. He wrote that to the police, but, with this kind of information that he knows that the place has probably been searched multiple times over. They still haven't found his mother, no traces, no anything.
Mm.
That, you'd think that, okay, hey, police, yeah, there's a lead, woohoo, But this letter would remain unanswered by the Keskusrikospoliisi for the next 5 years. And the son also wrote an anonymous letter to the Elämä magazine, which Elämä means life, so Life magazine. And he wrote the article basically that says, "I suspect my father is a murderer." And he sent that to the
That's not
magazine.
very anonymous, but I guess if you don't mention the case, yeah.
Yeah, and he changed the place and the date of the murder. He kind of tried to, hide everything basically. But after this letter came out, Pentti told Seppo, "You should just mind your own business." Like, they talked about the case basically, whatever, like his mother's disappearance, etc. And then, yeah, Pentti had the balls to tell his son, "You should just mind your own business."
If
Yeah,
your
like
mother's
how?
death is not your own business, then what is?
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as I said, nothing would be done with the letter until about 5 years later. So in 1971, the police brought Seppo into the case and asked to read like police transcripts and interrogations of Pentti. And basically, in all the years, like, he'd been brought in multiple times for questioning, and he'd always say like, no, 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 I don't know, I don't remember, blah, 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 blah. And then this is when Seppo noticed some discrepancies in Pentti's story. Seppo told the police that basically Pentti told him that his mother disappeared when he was putting some wood in the sauna building. So usually the sauna building in Finland is, in these older houses, are out buildings, so they're not attached to the houses. They're kind of like a small like shed basically with a sauna in it, right? Wood burning sauna. And Pentti had told the police that she disappeared during the morning of the 23rd while he was sleeping. But then, like, this was also quite difficult to kind of research, because like one did this, then another person did this, and then the neighbor accounts, well, this doesn't make sense if we go by what the neighbors were saying, that they saw her on the 23rd getting a Christmas tree, right? So, and the preparations, etc. So it doesn't really make that much sense that he's telling them the 23rd, the neighbors are telling them one thing, then so there's just obviously different stories, right?
And what was the story that you started, that he came back on 22nd and he
Yeah.
was nowhere? Was that the story
Yeah.
that Pentti had told?
Yeah, that he was initially telling too. Yeah. So there's multiple things. Like, his story was like, yeah, I came home, I got drunk, I went out, I came back, and then I fell asleep, and then my wife was missing or whatever. Then
Mm.
and then that was one story. Then oh, she wasn't home when I got home. That was another story. Then the neighbors were like, oh, we saw her on that day, and then we didn't see her ever again. And then yeah, so there's like at least a couple different stories. Like on all the different sources, there's multiple different accounts of when she disappeared. But I kind of put it together that on the 23rd is when she actually disappeared.
Yeah, because why would the
Yeah.
neighbors lie? I mean, of course,
Yeah.
if they did it, but it doesn't seem
Mm-hmm.
like the likely.
Mhm.
Yeah. So with all this information and blah blah blah, like this kind of allowed the police to carry the case forwards and ask for permission from like the Bureau of Investigation, or basically like from a judge or something, to get a warrant to open up the fireplace, because they're like, hey, that's some place that we haven't checked. We've checked all around there, but the fireplace is still the one place that we haven't checked. Interesting. Interesting that they didn't do this 6 years or 5 years
Yeah.
prior. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. So on Hilkka's name day, on Monday, November 27th, 1972, 12 years after she had been declared missing by her neighbors, she would be found.
So how is this unsolved case?
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm
I don't
already
want
so
to
annoyed.
ruin the surprise. I'm trying to make it a surprise. Okay.
Okay.
So they find her
Yeah,
in the oven.
we'll get there. So
Okay.
Inspector Gunnar Kivela from the Keskusrikospoliisi, the Turun Länsi-osasto, so the Central Criminal Police of the Turku, or the Provincial Division of the National Bureau of Investigation, came to the house with one task in mind. And this was to dismantle the oven. Yay. So the deputy mayor, Armas Kuusisto of Kokemäki, instructed 2 of his young police officers from his district to join the deconstruction crew. So they got like a mason and then some police officers, and they were told, hey, wear some clothes to get messy in because it's going to get dusty up here. So yeah, dismantling the oven was quite a messy job, but the masonry bricks were, easy to come off, like easily came off on their own. And when sifting through the sand that had filled the oven, which is also kind of weird, why would the oven, have a bunch of sand in it, right? Usually ovens aren't filled with sand, it's just brick. And yeah. This officer, Pentti Punkari, one of the young officers, came into contact with a rubber boot. And in the boot was a foot. And he famously declared, "Täällä on varpaat," which means, "Here there are toes." In the bottom of the oven, they found the mummified remains of a woman in a squatting position. And in one of the other photos that were posted on Instagram, you'll kind of see the kind of outline of how Hilkka was in the oven, basically. And she was fully clothed in outside clothing, and Seppo identified the clothes as his mother's, and thus the remains were of Hilkka Hilevi Saarinen.
I'm not surprised. I mean, if this murder was called oven death. Yes.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
Yeah.
sad that it took so long that they actually dismantled
Why
it.
didn't they check the oven before?
Yeah, especially that it was bricked up and like kind of it's an integral thing, in oven in a country farmhouse in Finland. An oven is a very integral thing. Like that's how you get your heating. That's how you heat your house, especially in wintertime. Yeah, yeah.
And
So,
I
yeah.
mean, this guy, the Pentti guy, he was a mason, right?
Yes.
So like, it's just so obvious
Yeah.
that he can, easily dismantle it and do it again.
Yes. Exactly. You should be a Detective Petra, you have such a, smart brain compared to
Yes, yes.
I'm not gonna
Well,
bash
So
I'm not
much
gonna
more.
bash the cops, but I'm just like, oh dear
looks like
God.
they would have needed the extra help in the 1960s at least.
Yeah, yeah. But so Punkari, the guy who exclaimed täällä on varpaat, remembers himself being very upset and thinking, like I think a lot of the cops, of course, this is in a small community, that they thought that this case would never be solved, at least like legally, in a court of law or something. Like it would never, find an ending. Everybody kind of this makes me think that, everyone knew that it was Pentti, but there was no body, there was no case, so they were just like waiting for the body to be found. And yeah, so that's kind of that's the whole community knew that he had done it. It's just
Mm.
they needed the evidence, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So any other questions or remarks before we move on, or do you guys have anything else, any exclamations to make besides fuck Pentti?
Yeah.
pretty much
Okay.
just that.
Okay, yeah. So Pentti, who had been arrested prior to the cops showing up, so they arrested him and then they went to his place to dismantle the oven. He, of course, denied anything to do with his, how his wife died and the placement of her body in the oven. He's like, she just appeared there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Turku and the Pori County Police Inspector prosecutor demanded that Pentti be punished for murder and the hiding of Hilkka's body. The case was discussed in court at the end of December in 1972, and there were multiple lines of reasoning of why Pentti was the most likely to have committed this murder, right? Because they're still, building a case against this guy. And the prosecutor, Arne Paatero, stated that there were multiple people saying that Pentti would threaten his wife with murder and that her body would never be found or her method of murder would be determined, right? That's pretty telling because up until this point, he pretty much almost followed through with that action plan, right?
Yeah.
And another point was that when she went missing, when there were no Sarinens in the area, just Pentti, and most importantly, he never reported her as a missing person. So why the fuck not? Sounds like you don't care or you know exactly where she's at, right? She's not missing in your mind, right? And in the trial, Pentti appeared without counsel, or he wanted to, though in the end the court forced him to have, they appointed him a defense lawyer. So the trial was delayed for a few days to allow the defense to read all of the evidence against his client. But like Pentti had to hear testimonies of 17 different people who, thought he did this crime basically. So the daughter, 22 years of age at the time of the case, at the time of the court case, and 10 years of age at the time of the murder, attested to his cruel nature and stated that, he would beat their heads into the wall and, of course, chase them around with an axe. And Seppo recounted Christmas time, the 1960 Christmas time with his friend, and stated that he and his friend were constantly under surveillance by his father and that they strolled around the yard. And anytime Seppo brought up his mother, Pentti would get red in the face and just not want to talk about it. So interesting, right? And neighbor accounts say that the house was constantly ventilated in the winter, spring, and summer of 1961. So the house was diligently cleaned with Lysol, even though the house was generally known to be clean, and Pentti himself was not at all like the cleaning type of guy. He, left it up to Hilkka to do the cleaning. So the neighbors also remember him closing the windows during the time when the smell began to bother others outside. So there was a smell coming from the house, and when it became too much, he would close the windows. Plus, having windows open in the winter time, like constantly, is super odd, especially in Finland, like where it can get down to like, negative 20 something degrees Celsius or, almost 0 degrees Fahrenheit, I think, or yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And another neighbor remembers thick, foul-smelling smoke coming out of the fireplace, and there were also accounts of Pentti digging up soil on his premises. So I don't know if I agree with the thick, foul-smelling smoke because, well, we'll get to that later too, but I don't think he burned the body, basically. But yeah. But
I
then
mean,
with all
if
these
she was
accounts,
found mummified, it's not
exactly, yeah.
burned.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of, yeah. So I don't think that was more of like maybe an after fact, that knew that she was found in the oven, but didn't know that she was mummified. So yeah, he burned her, blah 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 blah. But I don't think
Mhm.
that account was real, in my opinion. But one thing is like, why the fuck had nothing been done back in 1961 if indeed there was foul smelling stuff coming from the house? And he was acting fucking weird because apparently he was also, he'd still go out and drink in public and stuff. But then after this, 1961 in the wintertime, he suddenly wasn't going out. He wasn't drinking. He was being like a social recluse. So, you know, going back to my last episode, what are some weird things that you've noticed for people? Like, are people suddenly being more of a social recluse? They're not wanting to be around people? Are they being paranoid? Like, he's like tick, 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 tick. Like, all these
Is their
fucking things.
home smelling of a dead body?
Yeah, right? Like, and I don't know if they meant like, okay, was the Lysol too much or was it the body? But I'm just like, if it was
Yeah.
body smell, you kind of know. Like, yeah. So I'm just questioning why was nothing done back in 1961? We'll never know, I guess.
There's no
That was
explanation afterwards.
no, no, no.
Because
Well,
I'm
also
also
like,
just
mm,
yeah, sorry. I'm also just thinking about this threat that Pentti was telling Hilkka that I will kill you and like your body will never be found or something like that, or hide your
yeah,
body or something like that. And then the guy goes ahead and hides her in the middle of the fucking like kitchen.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not like a super secret hiding place.
No,
And still they don't find her.
yeah. I guess it goes like hidden in plain sight, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do understand that it's this like high threshold for dismantling things like that are in
Mm,
the building that you have to
yeah.
be really suspect something before you start actually breaking someone's
Yeah,
house.
like super certain because then it's like I think another thing was that like they had to get the money to, carry out the investigation too. They had to have like an actual cause to get the money, then to get the permission, and then to go ahead and do it. So yeah, I think dismantling an oven and stuff would take quite a lot of manpower, hours, etc., and then also money too to do it. So yeah, I think that's one of the reasons, but they could have done it a bit quicker, especially with the son's letter. Like,
Yeah.
dear
Like
God.
latest.
It's just
Yeah.
That's
extremely suspicious. Like, who else could it have been? Plus, they have this, like, they clearly
Yeah.
see that the oven was dismantled and, like, built back up again. And all of these
Yeah.
signs are just, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There was also other accounts like where he was drinking with friends and stuff in town or whatever, maybe even at home. I don't know where they were drinking at, but like one of them would ask, "Oh yeah, so what happened to Hilkka?" Like kind of jokingly, like, "Oh, where'd you hide the body?" kind of. And then he would get super pissed and he'd like end up fighting his friends and he like beat the shit out of one of his friends. And then another time it happened and then the other friend, I guess, started to beat up Pentti and then Pentti like left or whatever. But it doesn't sound like the actions of an innocent man. Like, fuck you, you prick, like I would be like, yeah, don't blame me for the murder. She actually went away, sure, but beating up somebody just because they asked like jokingly, like
well, but then
Yeah.
again, like if you're like if you were an innocent man and someone
mm,
started joking about your disappeared wife, that haha, were you the one who murdered? I would still
yeah.
see that someone could get quite angry. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, in
Yeah,
this
short
context,
fuse. Yeah, short fuse.
yeah.
Yeah. So, also, another point of evidence that I think they might have omitted this from the actual court, like records, but there was this piece of evidence that was presented that and they had checked out 72 crime books before her murder. So, like, from, yeah, like checked out from the library like 72 different crime books and whatnot. And I just wonder
72.
72, yeah. And I just wonder if and I think he even said like he didn't even like crime books. But then why the number, bro? Like why the number? And I just wonder if any of these I wonder if someone went through all 72 books that he checked out and saw like, oh shit, there's a similar crime, you know? That would also be something that the cops could have possibly looked into too, you know?
Mhm.
Just
Mhm.
yeah.
I'm so
Yeah.
annoyed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll get more annoyed. I'm
Oh my
quite
God.
certain of that. So the autopsy revealed that due to the sand, she was mummified. So Hilkka was mummified, and there were no physical marks of abuse, strangulation, or poison. So technically, she could have been placed in the like this was prior to her, you know, death. So she could have been placed in the oven alive, though. The time that it would have taken for Pentti to dismantle the oven, place her inside, fill it all with sand, and then rebrick it would have made the scenario like pretty highly unlikely that this happened.
Was she maybe unconscious?
Yeah, but then it's like how would she have been made unconscious if there was no like form of any drugs or I mean they said poison, so I'm just assuming that they also checked for some type of yeah. And I also had the question, did they check for anything in the lungs? Because I mean, if there was sand, you know, in the lungs that she inhaled or something, but they didn't say that, but they did a bone marrow test. I don't know how this is done, but apparently it showed that she did not drown. She didn't drown, and that was not the cause of murder either. Because I was also thinking, could he have done like I forget what it's called colloquially, but this method of like stuffing snow, you know, down someone's throat because then they suffocate, but then it's not drowning because then the snow melts and then there's no sign that they've suffocated, you know, because it's like internally suffocating. Yeah. So I don't know. There's no sign of that, I guess, either. So, but
I'm not sure if
Pentti
I
claimed.
wanted to hear about this method existing, but too
I'm
late.
sorry. I'm sorry. I think it was. I don't want to be like racist or something, but I think it was like something Russian murder or something tied with. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Never heard
I
about it
mean, it
either.
sounds something that Finns can have done in the
Yeah.
past. I
Yeah.
hope in the
Yeah.
past, not anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, doesn't that kind of fuck you up a little bit? Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm going to get
Sorry.
nightmares. Yeah.
Oh no. I'm sorry. Like sleep
Well, I
paralysis,
mean,
demons.
it's kind of a
No.
given if we're doing a true crime podcast. So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So it showed that she didn't drown. But I mean, she could have been suffocated, I guess, as well. You know, a pillow or something. If there was no.
Mm.
Yeah. I just thought of that. Yeah, she could have just been suffocated. Okay. Anyway. So Ente claimed that apparently Romanis, so he's being a racist bastard as well, that Romanis broke into his house a couple of days before Christmas, and then they were the ones that did this to Hilkka. That they were the ones that, let's, just reason this out. They had, the Romanis did it. They broke in, they killed Hilkka, they dismantled the oven, put her inside, shoveled all the sand in, and then rebricked it. Because that
And then
makes
he was
perfect.
like, this oven looks different. Well,
Yeah.
And then he's just like, I'm not going to tell this to anyone.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know where she went. She just disappeared overnight, like in the span of a couple hours.
and rebuilt the oven before she left for some
Yeah,
reason.
yeah. So basically, the prosecutor claimed that Pentti most likely killed her during a beating, but there was no physical evidence of this. So it's really just curious. I'm just thinking, in my mind, now that I thought of it, that the suffocation makes the most sense, pillow or something. But then if I just wonder the thoroughness of the autopsy because there was no there was no determination of like how she died. They kind of left it up in the air. It was like they couldn't determine the cause of death basically.
I guess there's some limitations if the body is
Yeah.
mummified. I don't know.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. But yeah, so on June 19th, 1973, Pentti was determined to have sound mind, which is, good, so he can be charged with manslaughter, and he was sentenced to 8 years in prison. But
Why manslaughter and not murder?
we'll get to that too.
Okay.
So, but 6 months into his sentence on December 28th, 1973, the parole committee decided that there wasn't enough evidence to prove he was guilty of murdering Hilkka.
For fuck's
Also, the statute of
sake.
limitations for involuntary manslaughter and aggravated assault was 10 years. So it had already passed because this was 12 years later. And morbidly, yeah. So I think the reason why is because there was no evidence of like how the murder actually happened.
So
So
there's
they,
a possibility that she just happened to die, and then the husband wanted to hide. So it's just hiding a body.
yeah. And I think, but then that also, the statute of limitations could have also maybe run out on that too. So anyway, but it's just all
Or
sorts
like
of,
killed her by accident. I guess that could be manslaughter
yeah,
too.
Mm.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's
But
what they probably
then
thought.
hiding the body
The
and
beating.
everything. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think that's the reason why they said like the beating, like he probably killed her during the beating, and that's why they went for the manslaughter charge. But there was no evidence. So yeah, that's kind of, yeah, that's that. So he was released after 6 months. So morbidly,
Okay. Yeah.
after his release, yeah, he
What the
went back
fuck?
to live in the same house Hilkka was murdered in, and where her body had been in for 12 years. And he ended up living it until his death in August 1st of 1986. So, the house was finally demolished in November of 2015. And in 2012, like some people decided to visit for some dark tourism purposes.
Oh.
And they said that the oven where Hilkka was found was still left in the state that police left it in. So kind of dismantled, meaning he lived with a dismantled oven for 24 years. And there's also going to be a photo on Instagram, and there's the side by side from, when they dismantled it, 1972 to 2015. So, yeah, so the sad thing is that technically, according to the police, this case is still unsolved because the parole board committee cleared him of charges, and that this case, appointed lawyer Erkki Järvenpää, so Pentti's lawyer, stated that the only facts in this case were that Hilkka Saarinen disappeared in December of 1960, and her body was found in the Leivin Uuni in November of 1972. So that's kind of, the court stated that the man had not caused the death of Hilkka, at least by violent means. So there had been, like
What is it?
no
Okay.
grounds to
Oh,
basically keep
okay.
him. Yeah, no grounds to keep him basically because there was no evidence that he did it by violent means. And then, of course, the statute of limitations had run out too. So even if he had done it by manslaughter, like it was already 12 years 12 years after the case. So if they had actually, investigation based on the letter from Seppo, when it had arrived, 5, 6 years later, there would have at least been a timely conviction.
Yeah.
And, but whether the court would have still found him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, because there's still, that question of, okay, did he do it? Was it an accident, etc.? Would that have held up in court anyway? So whether he would have been convicted of it anyway is still the question. So a couple last notes, and then we can go into some comments and questions and whatever. But from a Helsingin Sanomat article on the 5th of February 1974, Pentti commented, vuoden olen nyt vanhempi kuin silloin, kun vankilan jouduin epämuuta. Which means I'm a year older now than when I went to prison. That's all. What a fucking asshole.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. kind of sums up his personality perfectly. Just doesn't really care that, you know, he killed a woman and hid her in the oven and, you know, lived
Yeah.
with the body for fucking years. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so fucked up too.
Yeah. And so after his release, the neighbors referred to him as the Vapaa Murariksi, so the or Vapaa Murari, or a Freemason as kind of a joke, like, you know, because the Freemasons and then a Freemason. Yeah. And they were all kind of like scared of the guy with, you know, just cause, because everybody knows he fucking did it. Just, yeah. And then after all of this, his children kind of, you know, drifted apart. And one of his sons ended up completing suicide, another was murdered. But luckily, Seppo said he had a pretty good life. You know, he, you know, cleared his conscience. Like he, you know, found out what happened to his mother. So he felt like he had a pretty good life after that. Like he had, you know, he was free to finally find out what happened to his mom.
Yeah, I would.
And
Yeah.
yeah, go on. Yeah.
Just like on that note, that this is not really an unsolved case in most of the mines, I
Yeah.
would say. Like for
Yeah.
Seppo, the
Yeah.
neighbors, there's nothing unsolved here. I mean, of course, we
No,
don't know
no.
the
I was
details
a
what
bit
exactly
misleading.
happened, but
Yeah, yeah. I was a bit misleading. It was more for
this
the
is a
thrill.
case without justice.
Yes, definitely. Agreed. Yeah. And one last point, and I don't know if this was kind of like a dick move on purpose, but the town or like the municipality or the village, whatever, they renamed the road leading up to the house Muurarintie, or Masoners Road. So, yeah, that's a bit tongue in cheek for me, like a
Yeah.
bit too fucked up in my mind. So, yeah. But that's the case of Hilkka Saarinen and her untimely demise by a complete asshole who, yeah, may he rot in hell or whatever plane of existence tortures people after they die. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I hate everything about this case.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Now I have to Google
I'm
the
sorry.
road. It's a very short road.
Mm.
I also keep thinking that this like explanation from the police or from the court that there was no evidence that she was murdered in a violent way. Like
Yeah.
something like the fact that they waited 12 years to actually investigate her body, right? Like until the time that her body was found might have something to do
Yeah.
with this, that they couldn't find any physical evidence. Because if they would have found her, well, immediately or pretty quickly after it happened, there might have been some physical, like concrete evidence there.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's just very, very frustrating, kind of this, yeah, it's lack of justice for Hilkka. And you kind of just want to, yeah. And like other accounts too, like he was just always gaslighting her too. Like in the court, you know, the police and the doctor, you know, had also testified and, you know, like on cases of the abuse charges and stuff, like if she had to go to the doctor. And like one time he said, yeah, she was riding her bike and she got into a bike crash because she was really clumsy and she doesn't know how to ride a bike well. And like, sure, bro. Like,
And then
yeah.
she ended up in the oven because that's what happens after a bike accident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Or you know, she doesn't make your food right, so she ends up in a fucking oven. Like, okay. Yeah.
Wow.
Like this is of course we don't know the court system in Finland at that time. Has it changed much now and so on? But I don't know, there's many cases that you get the judgment just based on circumstantial evidence, which here is the
Exactly. Yeah.
situation. But I don't know. This just made me think of this whole like Finland is famous of its violence against women. Like the
Yes,
domestic
I was also
violence
thinking that.
statistics are
Yeah.
very high in Finland. Like I think we have gotten some kind of what is it called, like note, because like that we have to do something about it because it's a what is it, like the Istanbul to that every country has the responsibility to protect women from violence.
Yeah,
Kind
the
of.
one that
Yeah.
Hungary didn't sign.
Okay, yeah, that one.
Oh Jesus
And
fuck.
okay, let's not even go there then.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Finland is still like one of the worst in EU,
Mm,
which is so it's a safe country for women in the sense that you can walk freely on the streets. There's not much that kind of fear of violence,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
yeah.
like it's the closest ones that commit the violence. And I mean how it affects the attitudes of court and judges and everything, like is the women victims' rights,
Yeah.
do they get enough justice? I don't know how it's nowadays. I don't
Yeah.
think they still do, but probably even worse back
Yeah.
then.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, and it's like there's multiple accounts from the doctor. Why was nothing done? It was just a
About
pity
her
that she
injuries.
had about her injuries and stuff,
Mhm.
and like the neighbors. I think the neighbors were probably the ones that stepped up, and most likely, I'm just guessing here, obviously, but the kids were taken away and put into foster care, but I'm guessing it had to be because of, eyewitness accounts from the neighbors. Or maybe it was Hilkka herself trying to get the kids out, who knows. But yeah, you just feel for the women, especially back in those days, that were in an abusive relationship, that, were housewives or didn't have much of a, monthly income, and they were stuck. And yeah, that's just so incredibly fucked up and sad.
Yeah.
Justice for Hilkka.
I have now I actually got an idea what I could cover next time. It's a bit similar case, but I think it's solved one and a newer one.
Mm.
Kind of sad
Yeah.
that we have a similar case that is a newer one, but
Yeah. I mean, even like when I was in Denmark, how many years ago was that? Like 2017 or something, so about 7 years ago. And then I was like at this bar, and this woman, like, we were talking, and then she was like, "Oh, so where are you from?" I was like, "Oh, well, I came from Finland." And then, "Oh, that country has a lot of wife beaters," and I was like, or wife abusers, and I was like, "Really?" Like, and I wasn't aware of this, and that was the first time that I'd really heard something. Like, she was like, "Yeah, you guys have one of the highest, accounts of domestic abuse or something." I was like, Jesus Christ. Like, and then I started thinking about, this in a different light. And I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty
Mhm.
interesting.
still a super weird way to start a conversation. Like,
Yeah,
Go
I
to
never
the
heard
end.
anyone bring this up as the
Well,
first thing that you know about Finland.
Yeah, me neither. And
well,
I'm a
well,
Finn.
I mean, it was in the bar that I was in. It kind of makes sense, but yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. But I mean, I've been in a bar abroad and told that I'm from Finland, and yeah.
Well, it was a lesbian bar, so
Okay, so
Okay.
but still, like, we're
Yeah.
lesbians, so we have to be aware how bad the men are.
yeah,
I don't know.
maybe. I don't
But
know. I
I
think it's a
mean,
bit
yeah,
more
maybe
like
she was.
feminist. I think it was a feminist
Mhm.
comment from her.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So she was interested in the topic. Maybe it's
Mhm.
not the
Yeah.
most common thing that's like if you don't follow topics around violence against women to begin with, maybe that's not the first thing you know about Finland,
Yeah, I
hopefully.
didn't know about
Yeah.
the statistics for a long time. Like, yeah, it's not necessarily something that most people ever heard
Mm.
about related to Finland.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
really good the more people know, because it's
Mhm.
always the international pressure. Like lots of
Yeah.
countries care how they are perceived by other countries.
Absolutely.
So the more there is international pressure, like, oh, this is bad for the happy country Finland image. I mean, that's just the fact that there's
Yeah.
lots of these things are not like just be seen valuable by default. Like you would think that, okay, getting rid of violence is just thing that we should do just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people want this like added value there. Like, okay,
Yeah.
then other countries will make more business with us and love Finland more and whatever.
You know what we should
Yeah,
do?
yeah.
We should start a movement because this whole thing like Finland's the happiest country, but we should like have these stickers or something like that that we just put below all of these like things, or I don't know, like have a tag that we can put on that says, but it's the highest number of domestic abuse cases in Nordic countries or something like that. Because I feel like that everyone always focuses on the positive things, but yet there's all these dark things lurking underneath,
It's also
and
just like
it's just,
what, like also just kind of in comparison with other countries, because like
yeah,
I'm not saying that this is good, but there are a lot of countries that have it even worse in a lot of other ways. So
yeah,
sure,
yeah,
like this,
yeah.
these problems should be highlighted still. But
Yeah. I think just the fact that they highlight the good things, the happiest country, that's the part that makes me kind of sick every single time I see that. It's just, but really, like,
yeah,
come
but like
on.
just like think about like, okay, so if this is the happiest country, then how are other countries?
Yeah.
Oh
And I
God,
don't
yeah.
think Finns are too much about the like we are the happiest country. It's more like, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
we have so much problems, blah blah blah. It's more about the
Yeah.
media
Yeah.
abroad that kind of always put.
Yeah,
And
but
that's why we
Finland
need to
is
highlight
very
it
good.
abroad. We need to highlight it
Yeah.
abroad that, yeah.
I agree, but
Yeah.
also depends on the perspective, sort of what you're comparing it to.
Yeah. Guess that was our episode, or
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, so about next week. It's my turn next week, right?
yeah.
Yeah, so I only came up with this idea today, and I don't really know what to say about it. It's a Hungarian case. Again, it's more like an older one from the early 20th century or late 19th century, probably. Yeah, around that time.
Is that old? Oh no.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just thinking like, oh God, late 20th century. Okay, yeah, all right, yeah.
No,
Yes.
early 20th century, late 19th
Oh, okay.
century.
Okay, okay.
That's
Okay.
at least
Yeah.
what I meant to say, but maybe I didn't say that. Yes, so kind of an older case, and I don't know. I'm not going to say anything else about it because I don't really want to give away the main points, but we're going to post a hint on Instagram.
Okay. I'll be waiting for that hint, Victoria.
Yes, it's coming.
Okay. So I guess that's it for this week, and thank you for listening, guys. Thank you for suffering along with me, and sorry for bringing this case, but hey, we talked on important topics at the end here, and culturally important topics, socially important topics. As listeners, you can follow us on Instagram at Translation Murder Podcast. You can send us an email, of course, and send your suggestions. You can even, I don't know, if we would ever get enough listener stories, we could do a listener story episode. Of course, send any concerns you have or corrections, sure. And what is something that they should not send us, Petra?
Dick pics.
Yeah, please don't send
Stop
those.
sending them.
Yeah, stop it. And you can check out our webpage at translationmurderpodcast.com. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. And just like our stuff on Instagram, subscribe to our podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, because we, put these out every Sunday, so you can be the first to listen to the episode and leave a comment underneath the episode. Those are always fun. Thank you. And yeah, so thanks for listening this week. Paralla.
Bye.
Bye.